My name is Claudio Carvalhais. I'm originally from Brazil, and I now teach at Union Theological Seminary in New York. And I am a father of three wonderful kids, Libby, Cici, and Ike. My wife is Katie. She's an OT, and I have a little dog called Amora. We might hear on the back here sometime.
Fantastic. And so in this conversation, Claudio, we're talking about the place of wealth and money and riches within churches, right? And what does it mean if you either come from a wealthy congregation, and that even that phrase, right, can be teased out. I remember conversations that you and I had doing seminary about what a wealthy church was. Like if you could just pay your pastor in the context of where you lived in, that was a wealthy church. And so how do you define wealth in the context of the church in the United States?
Oh, Chris, it's so there's so much there. The field that I have here is very different from when I was a pastor in Brazil, right? And here it seems like the first thing to have a church is a budget. It's not a call, it's not anything else. It's a budget. If you have a budget, then you can build anything, right? If you're not in anybody's budget in this country, you do not exist. So you have always to have a budget. And because I'm seeing like churches that are small and closing because they don't know how to survive, but they cannot think in terms of being together, even if they don't have money, right? So it is a very complex issue, as you know well. But let me think about this. So on most of the Protestant churches and the Catholic Church, they have amassed, some of them have amassed an enormous amount of money, right? That they can survive on it. As you mentioned, the Roman Catholic Church has so much land in this country. As you know, like the Presbyterians have $5 billion in their as their assets and money. The Methodist Church has $20 billion, and so when we talk about one church, Anglican church in New York, one local church, which is Trinity Church, has $5 billion. One local church. And so when you start to think in that way, you will see that the churches are as much as a part of the social disparity of this country as anything else. Then you see that the churches do not have much difference or too many differences from banks or big corporations, because our structure, the structure of the churches are the same. When you talk about Protestant churches, you're talking about huge disparity, as if we have normalized that disparity. So it is normal, it's common, it is acceptable to get one church paying $500,000 for a pastor, and another church pay 19 hours and a half to the pastor because he cannot go to 20 hours, because if he goes 20 hours, it has to pay health insurance. And we have normalized that. So as we grow into the seminaries and as we go out, we are always hoping to get that church, we have completely erased the notion of charisma and of call. And we have settled the structure of ministry. If you're talking about pastors now, right, and ministry, we have settled it around on the ground of package. So if you were called to serve in Chicago or in Detroit or in uh, Miami, you're gonna look, what is the package, right? You're not thinking about call. You're thinking about the package. And so what it does is to have what we have. Like in the Presbyterian Church, we have 70% of the churches with less than 100 people who are struggling, whose pastors are struggling to simply survive. And we have 5% of these churches who have pastors who get this enormous amount of money and a package that it is huge with all of these things. And so why? Why have we normalized? That's capitalism. That is when capitalism has eaten up the faith so enormously that we haven't even noticed that we serve Mammon and do not serve Jesus. Because what we are supposed to do is to do this, Chris and Bill and I. So we are three pastors, right? We are three pastors of the same denomination. Why would Bill get 20,000 per year? Chris will have 60,000 and I'll have 100,000. Well, that's because we can easily explain it, right? It is, we can rationalize it well. So I did my work. Chris did kind of his work, and Bill surely didn't do the work he was supposed to do. And so it is not my fault. If I have 100 and Bill has 20, I'm sorry, he didn't work, he didn't go to the right seminary, he didn't have the connections, he didn't preach good, he's not that smart, he couldn't do the work. And so that is easy to say. When a real church should be this, okay, we have the same salary. We are all gonna get 60 or 100 or 20, but we're all gonna have the same. So now Chris has a call that he has either a rural church or he has a church at the Magnificent Mile in Chicago, or a rural church in South Dakota. Where does he go? He goes to where his call is at stake. He goes where his charisma that God has given to him. And if this call is between Bill and Chris, and Bill says, no, I am a city person. I have to go to the city. I don't know what to do with the rural areas. But Chris says, I love to be with people in the rural area. So you both go to where your call is and not where the package is. Because if it is about package, both of you are going to run to the Magnificent Mile because you have to sustain and support your family. So if we're talking about just that, we can talk about so many other things related to churches as well. But if we talk about that, we are the same unjust and demonic system that capitalism carries, and we support it, and we say amen, and we say, well, that's how it is. That should be in everything, like seminaries too. Why we have presidents of seminaries with so much money, and we have students drowning in debts? Why? Why don't we have the same salary? Once I was in the seminary and we were going through a tough time and our salary was cut 30%. I said, what if we make everybody's salary the same? From the cleaning folks to the president. And then we can support everyone and we can support the students. Get their debts out of the way so that they can actually function, because they cannot leave out of seminary having paid $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, sometimes $100,000 of education. How can you be a pastor with a $50,000 on your back? And this is what capitalism does. And I'll stop here because I'm speaking too much. Because I get so fired up with this, because this gets me so angry too. Because if we are Christian, that means that how you live, it's my responsibility. So if Chris doesn't have what to eat, I have to provide it, because I am my brother's keeper. If my students cannot pay their debts, it's my responsibility. That's what it does when we go to church. And now when we go, so this disparity that goes from the top of the church going down to the church, we live the same way in our congregations, more, less than others, more. But like when we go to the church, well, you take care of your life, Bill. I have nothing to do with you. We are members of this church, but my brother, if you cannot pay your rent, what can I do? It's your fault. It's you take care of your life. I'll take care of mine. Right? If you cannot pay your bill, I'm sorry, my brother, but it's on you. So it is very different, because then we are a composite of a group, but each one on their own. That's why I love some black churches that will pay for the college of their kids. The whole church are going to collect money to pay for the college of their kids, which is very different.
But I think that you pointed out two things that that really make it difficult for churches to function in a heaven on earth model instead of a capitalism model, right? Which is the difference between calling and you use the word package, but I would even say calling and sustainability, right? That the way our sustainability model currently works is that if I went to my undergraduate and then I went and got my master's, I can assume, what is it? The average American will have around $50,000 in debt. I can assume that I have at least $50,000 in student loans. And if I feel called to a rural ministry, I'm not going to make enough to pay off those $50,000 loans. And so you can't even go and serve the community that your heart is telling you to serve, because you're no longer able to be sustained. And so I think one of the questions that we have to pose to our congregation and to our faith community is, how do we reshape this sustainable model into a call model? How can we do, as you said, what some black churches do? If we pay for our students to go to college, then they're not in debt and therefore are able to freely go out and embrace their call. It's a theory that I came up with this when I was in college. I call it the theory of accountability, or the theory of responsibility. The more responsibility that you collect, the more debt you're in, and so the less amount of freedom you have. And our church model is like building up all of these responsibilities, and so the people who have a heart for ministry can't go out and do that, can't go out. And so that's just not enough, right? It's not enough just to state the fact. What do you feel like churches can do, maybe 2 or 3 points, to begin getting themselves out of that sustainability model into a call model?
So I'll tell you from my experience. So first of all, if you're part of a denomination, get pastors and change the legislation. I've been talking to my Presbyterian church for more than 10 years. Nobody hears, nobody cares, because there's this capitalist system. Everybody wants the bigger church. And then somebody once told me, well, but if you put everybody's salary the same, that was a pastor telling me, then people why would they wake up in the morning to do their work? They're going to lose their desire to do the work. And that's when I got it. I said, my Lord Jesus Christ, we wake up in the morning to get a better package. We don't wake up in the morning to serve the people of God. That's what keeps me going every morning. Oh, I'm going to get better so that I can go to another place. See, so first of all, we have to learn that whatever you are now, you have to love. This is your community. You have to love with what you have. Second is like I'll tell you, I was a pastor of a very poor church, very poor, in the outskirts of São Paulo. Nobody could ever go there to be a pastor. I was the first pastor of the church. And so when I get there, we are trying to, we were renting a space. And you know, the story will respond to your question. So we said, so, okay, let's get a roof and a piece of land and, you know, 4 walls and a roof, and let's go there. And it would be like $5,000 to do everything, right? To buy the land and to, so we start our, $5,000 to $8,000, something like that. So we start our work and we do all the campaigns you imagine. We do the campaigns of, you know, pizza, ice cream, cake, yard sale, jumping ropes, whatever. We try to get money. So after like a year, we had $300. No, after 3 years, we had $300. No, I'm sorry, 3 years at the time. No, a year and a half. Yes, a year and a half. We had $300. And here we go, and we keep going. And then one day, somebody from the church comes to the session and come to me and said, Pastor, my roof fell in my house. And this man had 8 kids. So we called the session, and so there was no doubt we would have to help this man. So how much was it? Go back and forth, $300. And what did we do? A year and a half of it, we gave it to him, and he put a roof in his house. So this is how we live for each other. It's not to build another wall. It's not to, it is to survive. So it is this church of my friend who showed me once. There was this envelope that the plate came, and then he gets the envelope, and the envelope says, Pastor, sorry, I needed $50. I will give it back next week. So, next week comes, and the offering comes, the plate comes, and another envelope says, Pastor, I needed another 20, but it's 70 now. I know, I'm counting. I'm gonna pay you. And then he starts to get envelopes with installments of $5 back. Why don't we do that like an official thing? That we will support the money for everyone. Like when I was this pastor of this church, third month, they didn't have money to pay my salary anymore. So no budget. So should close the church? No, they needed each other. So they start to give me food, all they had. On Sunday night, I would come home with so much food, and a man would put $5 in my pocket to pay for the buses. I had to take 2 buses and a train to get that. That's how we survived for 3 months until we were able to. Now, everybody starts to get unemployed. What do we do? So somebody of the church comes to me and said, Pastor, we have our offering every Sunday, but I don't have anything. I don't have my salary anymore. What do? I said, get your envelope, bring it with everyone or whomever comes, and put it there. But with what? With what you have. But what if I don't have anything? Bring anything. But anything is something for God. So he put it there. And when he was walking, he would look at me and I said, yes, go for it. And so after that, a month later, the treasurer comes to me and said, Pastor, there's something wrong after the service. I said, what's going on? So, look at this. And he showed me from all the envelopes, 70% of the envelopes were empty. He kept telling the other people. And so everybody was giving what they had. And this I told the congregation, and that was a joy. Everybody unemployed. So people start to eat at each other's house. This is for me, Chris, what Christianity is about. We will take care of each other. How do we go into sustainability? It is not to go on our own. Sustainability means we are working together. Who is in this congregation does not have health insurance? We'll have to figure it out.
Yeah,
We'll
I
have
think
to
that
get. So go ahead.
yeah, I think that what you're pointing out there is like one of the difficult things that we have to make leaps for, and in particular for the youth who are watching this video, right? That the adults around you do not talk about how much money they make to each other. They don't talk
Right.
about how much they're spending in bills. The church
Right.
isn't always clear about what the expenditures are. And so, because capitalism brings in this isolated insecurity and this competition, because if I tell you how much I make and then you tell me how much you make, now we're in competition with one another
Exactly.
instead
And
of
now I start
sharing.
resenting you.
Yeah. And so I think that if you're a youth and you want to begin changing this structure in your community, first it starts at home of just you as a family member being comfortable enough to tell your children, tell your family, be clear about where money is going and where it's coming from. Because it's that secretness that's built into capitalism that allows this model to keep going. Because I'm
Right
afraid to tell
on.
you how much I have, and you're afraid to tell me what you are in need of. And so we don't even help each other.
Right on. The secrecy is that. But in my household, it was very clear that I had to give 10%. 10% was the minimum I should have. And it was nothing prosperity gospel with my family. My mother, I remember the first envelope that I received was with money inside. So my money gets the envelope. And I give it to her. I was 13 years old. I give her the envelope. She opens it in front of me, and the first thing she does is to get 10% and put it on the side and say, "This is for church." Now, this is for the family, and this little thing is for you. But the thing is, I grew up from the first salary. I knew that 10% was not mine, but it was for my people. You know why? Because when I grew up, my parents didn't have money to pay for all I needed. So my own food came from the church. See, when you depend on the church, it's a different thing. So to this day, I cannot not do it. I cannot not give it because it is built in my bones. It's not like, oh, I'm having a hard time this month. No, it is the opposite. I'm having a hard time this month. I'm gonna give because somebody is in a harder time. And so today I'm gonna give because I can give. And I will bless Bill, who is going through a tough time right now. Next month or in a year or in 2 years, Bill is gonna give because I am in a hard time right now. So if we do like this, we do a pool and everybody brings all they can, put it there, open it, and now say, what do we need to do? Do a community gathering of what we do with this money. So this month we have to, the roof is about to fall. Let's fix the roof. No, this month somebody cannot pay for their bill. This is the amount every month that we are going to allocate for bills. And now everybody can ask, and then the session will define. But 20% of all the money that we collect will be to pay people's bills, or will be for food, or will be for clothes, or will be for something. And so if we do that collectively, then the money is not somebody's money, but it is the community money. And then right. I am implicated with you as you are implicated with me.
And that makes me think of, and you pointed this out, the question I think between both models, between this scarcity model and this survival model and this call model is, who are you dependent upon? Right? If you know that you can count on God and the church, then you are more willing to take that risk, right? But if you are completely reliant upon your own household economy, then it becomes nearly impossible to take those risks and to take those leaps of faith. But if the church begins to create a communal economy, then we can allow people to step out in faith and risk, and to begin to change the world globally. But until that happens, we can't exist well within this communal model. And I think it's the biggest push that we get from friends who are atheists or friends who are agnostic is, what are you relying upon? Because your life looks no different than my life, other than you go to a church on Sunday.
That's it. That's it. You're right on. And you're bringing fully the theological question, Chris, which is about where exactly the point you brought out, where your trust come from, mm-hmm. where your reliance is. If you are on your own, then you live with a culture of scarcity. I have to provide for myself. How much I have saved, how much I have, do I have enough for my family? Do I have, this is always about me. And then whatever is left is for somebody else. And when the reliance, it is more the Ubuntu, the African Ubuntu, I am because we are and we are because I am. If it is that sense of collectivity, then we don't need to live in scarcity, because I know that if today I do not eat, somebody is going to provide for me. Mm-hmm. And so that is, I think, what is matter is how do we provide. There's this video from Africa of, this is a pastor and theologian. Look what she does. She has one apple, and she's sharing with not her own kids only, but with the whole community. Look at this. Can you see it? Sorry.
This video makes me think, well, then now if I'm one of those kids and that's how I understand my resources, how then do I react as an adult when I have, even if I just have an apple? If I've been taught since I was a child, even if you just have an apple, that apple belongs to the community, then I'm going to bring that into my life. But if I've been told as a child that what we have belongs to us and that we deserve this whole American capitalist self-made man narrative, then I'm less likely to do something there. And I think that is once again, the question still keeps going on. Who are you dependent upon? Because even in the self-made man narrative, that self-made man didn't build the roads. He didn't grow the trees. He didn't plant the food. You didn't do the majority of the work that was there, and in order to make you successful. And so I think until we're able to see ourselves in a community that thrives upon the success of each other, then we'll keep going back to this model of, as you said, greed and death. Because as you're living well in the church, someone else is dying. And we're both ignorant of what's not true. Normally the person who's dying knows the person who's living well.
That's true. That's true. And Chris, you continue to be brilliant as you always have been. And I remember you vividly in my class, how brilliant you always been. There's so much in my mind when I remember you. And you continue to be as brilliant and sharp as always. And you're right. You're right. If I hear my kids saying, where's my food? Where's my apple? Where's my this? It's always mine. It's always mine. So there's no my food. Where's our food? Where's the food? Because it is for everyone. And if we learn that, then it is not me about, oh my goodness, we have one apple. for 10 children. Who's going to get it? And if I have in this model of scarcity and self-made men, I'm going to go after you because you then become my enemy. And I have to put you down so I can have it. So I turn yourself into my enemy. As you said before, I'm gonna be concerned how much you get, and I'm gonna be resentful, and I'm not gonna trust you anymore. So there's no trust because I am to get my own. But if we learn that we are here to feed each other, that we sustain each other, that we are supporting each other, that's when we start to change. And we can change it at home, and we can change it. And church, one of the benefits of the church is to teach that we are a community. And but we have to go, a bit down into the real thing to be a community, to help each other, to help each other. Just okay, how many people have debts here? So what are you going to do? Let's try to figure it out together. Let's try to put together what we need. So this is small things. It is not like, oh, I got this, but why did I get this and you didn't? So perhaps we cannot have, so we don't have shoes. Well, we have a chance. We can either have, out of the 10 kids, 3 have Nikes and all the other 7 go without shoes or have miserable shoes, or we can have the 10 people have a pretty nice shoes that everybody can have. Yeah. So it is a change of mind. Mm-hmm. It is a change of heart to destroy the self-made, because there's no such a thing as a self-made man. Mm-hmm. For you to be there, you rely on your parents, on your family, on your church, on your community, on a whole host of people who put you right there where you are. And we are standing on somebody else's shoulders. And because of them, we have come this far. But and we have to also be aware, Chris, that we've been played by this game. Because in fact, it is a small amount. What you're talking about now, 3,000 people in the world that have more than 60% of the wealth of the world. These people are using us as puppets. And they throw this little meager thing and we jump at it as if we are at each other. And we don't know that there's a group of people above us who has all the money, while we thrive for the misery that is left out. So I think the work, it is in several levels. One, it is how do we create actions that we start changing my mind. Actions. Oh, I'll have to give. Oh, now we are taking care of each other. Oh, now I have to see who doesn't have health insurance. Oh, I have to figure out who's not in. So it is start to change the mind. And with action. So then we do in a community. Once we do it in a community, we start, no matter what, to be aware of this larger system that is keeping us there. Then we're going to go after it through vote, through community organizing, through engaging with other communities. So instead of me seeing, oh, that church there is not my church, is my enemy. Oh, that community of Muslims there, they are not me, they are my enemy. No, we're going to get together and we're going to be together with those who are suffering. And we're all at the bottom. And those who are at the bottom, we are going to create conditions of the possibility to live something new.
So before we wrap up, I'd like to invite Bill. Bill, do you have any questions for Claudio before we wrap up this session? Which this has been great, by the way, Claudio. It's great hearing from you.
Fantastic, Chris. Thank you.
Claudio, there's so many things going through my mind right now, and thinking about the work that we're doing with young people and trying to describe all of this to them. I find it ironic that oftentimes the Bible verse that we will bring up that gets the most pushback from groups, and particularly the adults who are with those groups, is when we start talking about Acts chapter 2 And when the church amassed, the assets that they had, put them together and shared them with people as they had need, which is what we're describing here. This is from the very beginning what the church is supposed to be about, right? And the way that the church is supposed to behave. One of the things that we talk about with our groups, or that we are talking more and more about, is in the history of the church. That at around 300 AD in the Edict of Milan, all of this changes, and suddenly we become part of the empire, and our power gets tied up with the empire, and so we start doing everything differently. And to what degree are our churches basically just being the benevolent part of the empire, sharing a little bit here and there? Now, when I think about our young people looking at the church and the role of the church, because a lot of our young people that we're working with are coming from wealthy congregations, people of means. But I think that we can see in little places, there are points in which the church says, yeah, I know the world does it this way, but we're doing this in a different way. And especially in the context of the United States, that we're, getting a fresh view of the darkness of our history, the difficulties, I should say, of our history, that it's been built on exploitation, and it's been built on hoarding wealth and power at the expense of others. What is your sense of like the mission of young people now? Because for us, we feel like the mission used to be defined as teaching young people to be generous, teaching young people to, to give a little here and a little there, put in their service hours. Now we're feeling like the mission of our mission is actually changing and pivoting, and that it's not only those things, but it's also how do we educate and inspire young people to address the systems that are causing people to be exploited in the first place, to be poor in the first place, to be homeless in the first place. So what are some things that you would encourage our youth leaders, our young people and the adults who work with them in terms of addressing these systems, like practical things that they could do where they are?
That's amazing, Bill. Thank you. Several things. One is that we have to have a good theology, right? Because if we're talking about church, we're talking about how you understand God and how you understand God in relation to us and us in relation to ourselves. So if we still continue to believe that everybody carries the imago Dei, the image of God, that means that I'm no different than you. So we start there. And then we start seeing examples in the history of the church, and starting in Acts 2, that people were gathering together. But then people often tell me, oh yeah, but that didn't work much for too long. That communism didn't work much. I said, but that didn't prevent them from actually continue to share, right? And people say, oh no, if you're talking about this thing of sharing with each other, you are a communist. And I said, well, I don't know. I'm not communist in the Russian way, or I'm communist because the gospel made me, not Marx. The gospel made me a communist because we were all common. Everything was common, and they were sharing together every day. And so the sharing is a sharing of life. So if we have that theology in place, then we can challenge our people to do that. So then we have to be alert to what is happening. Now we have to interpret the signs of our times. What are the signs of our times right now? Look at our streets are burning since George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and so many others. What can we hear? Are we going to look at what's happening on the streets and and go into a certain interpretation of Fox News to say, oh, look at these thugs, and put the blame on those who are suffering. So, or you're going to be on the side to say, no, there's something wrong with us as a country. So it is about, again, who are you with? Where God takes you. Does God take you to the street to listen to what's happening there? And to see your loyalty to God with those who are suffering? Or it is taking you away into a defensive mode and just say, no, this is not it. So where your God is a tough question. It's a divisive question. And there's no way to do this in a kumbaya mode. It is filled with contradiction and paradoxes and difficulties. And so listening to what's happening, I think we also, one way to engage folks is, for me, it is always go to a community that is not yours. What is in your church that has a community that is not yours? And knock at the door and say, hey, we want to hear about you. Can we share a meal together? Can we visit these Buddhist people? What if we share a meal with homeless people and hear their stories? What if we couldn't? It is about connection. That's one way of connecting, so that the whole community becomes a part of you, and not only my pocket that is safe against that pocket that is dangerous. Oh, no, but it's too complex, well, learn. Oh, there's too much drugs. Learn. Engage. Do a worship service to learn. Read. Focus on something for your community to go after, and go there. One thing that I've seen happening well everywhere is now, it is this awareness of the climate disasters. I think the new generations are way more aware of that than older generations are. And if we start there, everything changes. If we listen to the scientists, they are saying that in 10, 15 years, all the permafrost and all of the ice are gone. And if that happens, there's no way back anymore, ever again. And so if we start to pay attention to that, we are paying attention to a future that is very close. That my children are going to suffer, and I don't know if there will be a world for my grandchildren. So learning with another community means, well, the indigenous people teach us to take care of 7 generations, 3 before me and 3 after me. What was done? What happened? Why did I learn? Why do I need to break? Why do I need to stop? Why do I need to continue to take care of the next 3 generations? So then and this happens, I'm teaching my boy here, he's 8 years old, and I'm teaching him to listen to the birds. We have a tree that we call Wonder that we go visit. We pay attention. Now, because of that, paying attention, he knows that everything is becoming consumerism by capitalism. And now he's seeing that the trees are not to be taken. The mountains are not to be taken because we need to have our computer or everything that we want, that we have limits. He is posing the limits to myself because he's seeing that we cannot have it all. We are, Bill, 4% of the global population, 4. And we use 40% of the entire resources of the earth. We cannot go this way. So I think for the young leaders is to delve into those issues, is to engage, taking them to the river near the church and see if the river is clean. It is to take them so let's go to the places where poor people live, because it is a food desert. Why? It is have hands-on, drive them around, be with them and have them organize something, be agents of something. themselves, not to tell them what they need to do, or you need to do this, but our task as leaders, Bill, is to figure out ways to make our kids be deeply involved. Start a community produce, a garden, feed somebody. It's like, it is your task where you are, Bill, task, my task where I am, Chris where he is, to figure out how I can connect these kids to the earth. And we start with these real things. And if their hands get dirt, the heart and the mind start to move. And I think that's when we start to create small movements, small things, where you are, where we are. I don't know if I answer you, because it's $1 million question, but at least a little hint on it.